things have not gone well for the Sixers against Oklahoma City in the recent past. Things have not been going well for the Celtics either. What is going on in the East? Kurt Helin, NBC Sports, joins us now here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Kurt, welcome back, man. I mean, this Celtics story gets more interesting by the day. 4 in a row now.
Yeah, and their offensive issues have really started. The one thing that was an anchor for them most of the season is their defense, right? It's like, well, they're struggling on offense, but at least they're getting stops, and they'll be fine once they figure it out. Well, now their defense, the last 10 games, they actually have a bottom 10 defense in the league, and that's a real problem. Now they don't have that anchor. That's just they're losing games. Some of it, all right, they lose to some good teams. Portland's a good team in the second night of a back-to-back. That's not wholly inexcusable. They lost to Chicago. They're just losing games now they should not lose. It's clearly in their head, and there's some the divisions in that locker room between Kyrie and some of the veterans and the youth who want to be able to do more within the system. It's really getting exposed right now. Marcus Smart right on. They do not play as a team right now, and that's a concern 62 games into the season.
Yeah, and what is your take on them with Kyrie and without Kyrie?
You can't say they're better without Kyrie, just because they need the shot creation and some of the stuff, the late game ability that he has. But he hasn't been able to inspire and lead these younger players, and part of that's just it's hard. Those guys got Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown and Terry Rozier into the playoffs last year, and it was basically because of injuries. Hey, you're on a big stage, but here's the all-you-can-eat buffet. Go, just whatever you need. All right, start of this season, you're on a diet. You got to play this role. You got to do this. You got to do that. And they're just not adapting well to it, and it's not uncommon for young players. And between Brad Stevens and Danny Ainge to a degree, who built this roster and knew these could be issues, and certainly Kyrie Irving, they just have not been able to get it. They just have not been able to bring it together. There's a lot of rumblings around the league about how Kyrie wants out. He wants to, obviously New York gets mentioned a lot, but it's going to be interesting. If he leaves, it changes the Anthony Davis trade scenarios completely, because now you don't necessarily want to throw Tatum in a deal, and it just changes the whole tenor of the East. They go from being the team that looks like there could be, is going to be them and Philadelphia for the next, 5-7 years, to, hey, maybe not. Maybe they're not going to be all that. And by the way, maybe we should keep an eye on Milwaukee.
We should, and we'll get into them. Kurt Helin's with us, NBC Sports. We talk a lot. Where does Brad Stevens fall on the reason why this team is struggling? I mean, do you look at him and say, hey, a lot of people give him a lot of credit, but is it time to start looking at some of the things that he does, or is this more of a player problem?
I think that he gets some of the blame because part of the job, especially at the NBA level, look, he's a great X's and O's coach, and when he had an underdog team, sort of like he always had at Butler, he was able to kind of rally them, right? But as the favorite with a very different ego-driven dynamic in the locker room this year, he has not been able to get everybody pulling the rope in the same direction. And ultimately, at the NBA level as a coach, look, Phil Jackson wasn't the greatest X's and O's guy. He also knew that. That's why he had Tex Winter on all his staffs. But he was competent, but that was not his strength. His ability was to get guys to believe, and frankly, to get guys to believe that it was their idea to do the thing he wanted them to do. But all the great coaches, Popovich, Spoelstra in Miami did this during their title runs. He gets everybody to buy in and pull the rope the same direction. And Stevens hasn't been able to do that this year, and it's taken a little luster off of him, hasn't it? I mean, he's gone from the golden child to the, well, you were able to coach the team before, but now you got a title contender, and can you handle this?
That's interesting. We've had a lot of discussion recently about coaching in the NBA and how important it is, and where is it on the list of reasons why teams win and lose. And, do I think having a great coach helps? Sure. But I don't know in the NBA there are a lot of great coaches. I think there's just a lot of guys who are flawed. You know what I mean? And, is Stevens a better coach than Brett Brown here? I guess so. Is he going to win a game or so because he's the better coach? Yeah, but in the NBA, Kurt, doesn't the talent typically win out?
Exactly. Look, I think there are maybe 5 coaches in the league who, if you add them to if they become your coach, you get instantly better. Obviously, Greg Popovich is the easy example there, but Dallas's Rick Carlisle is probably the best X's and O's guy, maybe better than Popovich in the league. He keeps putting guys in good positions. There are certain guys who will just make you better. But that's maybe 5, and there's maybe 1 or 2. I'm not going to name names, but there's 1 or 2 who you're like, I'm not sure they belong. The other 25, 20, 23, 25 guys, and Brett Brown's not one of those, 23, 25 guys, they're good. They're solid, good coaches who, if you give them enough talent in the right situation, will be able to, they have strengths and weaknesses, but if you give them enough talent, they'll be able to win. If they don't have enough talent, they're going to be able to lose. I mean, you look at Brett Brown, maybe one of those guys. Usually a guy who I know is on the hot seat. I think Luke Walton's one of those guys. Luke Walton got that team to defend before. He certainly was fine when they asked him to sub in and coach the Warriors, but he's not been able to handle them this year the same way. They're not defending consistently. There's a whole weird dynamic there. I don't think Luke Walton's a bad coach. It's just this situation's gotten away from him, and you plug him in somewhere else with talent.
Yep,
he'd be fine.
Well, it's funny. He didn't lose in Golden State. He came to L.A. and started losing. Is he a good coach? Is he a bad coach? I don't know. I think players help you out. Look, I know locally a lot of people look at Brett, and they think he gets out-coached a lot by Stevens. And I said, well, Spoelstra, many people like him as a coach, and Brett beat him 4-1. Talent wins out. I want to ask you real quick on Milwaukee and Budenholzer, and that team. Do you look at – because I remember talking to you last year about playoff time, and you said, well, look, they got an interim coach. They're not really running anything. Is that a big difference for them this year? Is that, the coach does – I don't think the coach doesn't matter. He certainly matters. But is Budenholzer, when push comes to shove, is he a difference maker for Milwaukee?
Absolutely in this case. And I think, look, he might be one of those coaches. Remember, he got 60 wins out of Atlanta. As long as he's not the GM, he's fine. But in this case, what they needed was a modern offensive system that just fit what they had. The other thing that goes into this, you've got to have a GM that's on the same page with the coach. And this is the perfect example. They're like, hey, we're going to bring in Budenholzer. He wants to run a modern system that's up-tempo, that spaces the floor, that has a lot of three-point shooting. Let's go out and get Brook Lopez and Ilyasova to add to our big bench. We're going to go get shooters. And they go get Mirotic at the deadline. We're going to get shooters. We're going to space the floor. They went and got the pieces that fit what the coach wanted to do, so everybody was on the same page, and it just opened up everything for them. Now they're shooting the ball brilliantly. I mean, their percentage isn't crazy high, but they shoot a lot of threes. It opens everything up. Giannis is being Giannis because he's got more room to operate, and the whole thing works. He's probably going to be coach of the year because they needed his system, and it was, it's a jarring change from the 1990 system that Jason Kidd was running.
Kurt Helin, NBC Sports Radio. You can listen to him, the 24/7 Live Sports Talk Network. You can listen at NBCSportsRadio.com. Download the NBC Sports Radio mobile app today. Sixers tonight, they take on OKC. Lost a little luster. No Embiid, Westbrook here. Sixers also, don't forget, play the Warriors on Saturday. We'll have both games for you live on 97.3. Kurt, always a pleasure, pal. Talk to you soon.
Look forward to it, man. Take care.